It's the Commonwealth edition of the Battle of Alberta.
It is. It is.
Growing up in Edmonton, you couldn't help but be a fan of the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, you credit the website outsports.com because that's the first time that I realized, hey, there are gay people who like sports. The first Pride game that the Oilers did, we went to, and I remember just being like, okay, like, how is this going to go? Like, what's it going to be like? So I felt really good about that because it was really good pumping up the You Can Play organization.
All right, we are here for the final episode for season 2. This is the Pride and Puck podcast, episode 22. I am Andrew McDougall. Kevin Jesus, welcome to the podcast.
It's the Commonwealth edition of the Battle of Alberta.
It is. It is. Yeah, we had a conversation before you came on about wearing the jerseys or the sweaters, depending on what you want to call them. And then I woke up. I was just saying to Kevin, I woke up this morning and it's a bit too warm here in Australia to wear one. I've got the hat on. If you're watching on the YouTube, I've got the hat on.
That's awesome. And well, I mean, it's perfect Jersey weather here in Edmonton. It is a balmy -6 degrees right now, so we're good.
I watched I was on Prime, I think it was. I was just scrolling through Prime, and it was a short documentary called, I think it was Road Warriors or something like that.
Okay.
It's about couriers on bicycles in Edmonton, and it blew me away because I think it must have been in the depths of winter. And they said that they only get something like 7 hours of daylight a day or something like that. And it blew me away.
But in the summertime, it'll be like 11 o'clock at night and it's still like sunlight outside. So like we get terrific sunlight in the summer, but in the winter, it can be a little depressing.
Really?
Yeah, but hey, we embrace our winter city here. That's the beauty of Edmonton. We love the outdoors and except when it gets down to like -40, -45, then it becomes a little dicey. But other than that, I mean, hey, just go out and enjoy it, bundle up, get outside with a little fireplace on like a fire table or something, and you'll be nice and warm. It'll be perfect.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that these couriers were out on bicycles doing deliveries and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
In that weather. It was crazy.
It's you got to make it work somehow, right? You need to make your way down here, and you got to experience it.
yeah. I'm on stage.
That's awesome.
It's great to have you on, though. You've had an amazing career in media, which we will get to throughout the podcast. But you are Canadian Portuguese. You're a first-generation Canadian.
Yep.
You can explain the background, I suppose, on your father as well and his professional sporting career. But in terms of hockey, were you first? Was soccer your first sport that you were brought into, or was hockey the sport that you first when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, soccer was everything. Growing up, watching the Portuguese national team, which of course when I was younger they were terrible. We didn't have the likes of Ronaldo back then, but that's kind of where my love of sport kind of started to build. But growing up in Edmonton, you couldn't help but be a fan of the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, they had won, they were in the process of winning 5 Stanley Cups. I mean, you had the boys on the bus era. It was this city lives, breathes, dies Oilers. And right from a young age, loved the game, loved the sport. Although I really can't skate. I'm a terrible skater, so I never played it. But it was, it's hard to live in this city, live in this country, and not be a hockey fan.
A little side note, just on the Portuguese national team. From what I understand, Ronaldo's aunties or auntie and uncle live in Western Australia here.
And, that's awesome.
And there was a time where his mum was contemplating actually moving to Australia. So I sit here and I think sometimes, how would the Australian national team have worked out if Ronaldo had moved here?
I know this is a hockey podcast. I will say though that I do remember going to a game in 1994. Canada versus Australia. It was here at Commonwealth Stadium. It was a World Cup playoff qualifier, and I think Canada won, and then we ended up losing in Australia, and Australia ended up qualifying for the World Cup, I believe, or going to another playoff. I don't know. That was so long ago, but Australia's always had like some fun, exciting teams, and I always wish that they would do so much better and go farther. And I'm not just saying that because you're in here, Andrew, because really you're wearing such an ugly hat that I feel like we can't be friends, but we are because we're Commonwealth brothers, so that's how we roll.
Yeah. They've always punched above their weight.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the national scene. Tell us about your father, though. Did his sporting skill pass down to you?
Not a chance. Yeah, my dad used to play professionally in Portugal, so he played for a club, Sporting de Covilhã. They were typically about a second division team. Probably the best result they really had was in the Portuguese Cup. I think they made it to the quarterfinals or semifinals, and they ended up losing to Boa Vista, who is typically a first division team now. So yeah, he played there. He did extremely well. He really had a dream of wanting to go into coaching, and I think he would have done extremely well. But then he met my mom, and my mom's like, you know what? Let's move to Canada. So away they came, and my dad, the only words that he knew how to say were "Good morning," and he kind of figured it out, and he made a great life for himself. He passed down the passion of sport, but the talent did not come down my way. But no, you know what? Though it was the one thing that did carry over was his insistence that at the end of the day, as long as you give it your all, no matter what you do in life, that's all that matters. If you don't succeed, that's okay. You tried it your best and just either learn from it or try something else. And that's kind of how that's kind of guided my life. And, when we talk about sporting ability, I already told you, I really can't skate. So hockey's out of the question. I played a little bit of soccer, wasn't that great at it. Curling, I am pretty good at. So I do love to curl. And that's when I decided, you know what, if I can't be a sports player, if I can't be an athlete, then I'll go into sports broadcasting. And that's how my career progression ended up going for at least a little bit.
And your name has a hockey twist to it. Can you tell us that story?
I mean, Andrew, I don't know how many Portuguese people named Kevin. I can tell you it's not very many. But I can think of at least two of them. I'm one of them. And this other guy here in Edmonton is also named Kevin. And the reason for that is our dads back in the day. I mean, they've had a couple of drinks. I think they were feeling pretty good. And they kind of said, hey, you know what? The next Oiler to score, that's if our wives have sons, that's who we're going to name the kids after. And lo and behold, Kevin Lowe, who barely scored any goals, scored a goal. And the wives surprisingly said, hey, that was a pretty good name, so let's do it. But I always joke, like, imagine if Yari Curry would have scored, Yari Jesus, it would have been double J, it would have been pretty sweet. So yeah, but no, it's pretty cool. Fun fact, one of the first interviews I ever did in my sports broadcasting career was with Kevin Lowe. So I made a point to tell him. And he made a point to tell me, wow, you really have a way to make someone feel old. So, but it was good. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool story. And who wouldn't want to be named after a 6-time Stanley Cup champion?
And Hockey Hall of Famer, right? So
yeah, cool story. You were pretty young too when you knew that you wanted to be.
I appreciate it. I do look so young and beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate
that. When you wanted to be a sports broadcaster, and it was funny because I was watching the baseball here in Australia last night, and one of the callers who calls the games over here and does a lot of media stuff, he's from Guelph, and his story is sort of similar to yours. From a very young age, I think it's the Guelph Royals or something over there. In baseball, he used to take a recorder when he was a kid to the games and record commentating and stuff. You were from a very young age as well. Did you do that sort of stuff when you were younger?
Yeah, you know what? at the time, Rod Phillips, who's the Oilers, longtime Oilers play-by-play guy on radio, he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame as well. And you know, the games would start here at about 7:30 at night. So of course, by the time the third period hit, when I was a kid, it's pretty much bedtime. So I can remember so many times. Okay, how old are you, Andrew? By the way.
40.
Okay, so we're the same age. So you understand what a Walkman. Sometimes I talk to people who are like, you do not look 40, by the way. So I was just like, I don't know if you're going to understand the reference of a Walkman, but you obviously do. But yeah, I remember like my parents be like, hey, you got to go to sleep. You're going to miss that third period. You can find out in the morning reading the newspaper. Back in the day when you'd read newspapers. But so what I would do is I would sneak my Walkman into my room and I would have it like on super low volume, which didn't even make sense when I think back at it now because I had headphones. So like it's not like anyone's going to hear, but I had it super low so I could just hear the rest of that third period call, and I would usually try and listen to a little bit of the call-in show afterwards. And that was the passion. And I would just think about how Rod Phillips would call those games and how descriptive he was and the excitement into it. And I was like, wow, like that's something that I want to do. And every night when we would sit down for dinner, we'd be watching ITV News, which is now Global Edmonton, which I had the pleasure at working at actually. And I would watch those sportscasts and I'd be like, wow, like that's something that I want to do one day. So at the age of 12, I was like, yeah, I know what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a sports broadcaster. And, dreams do come true. Have to put in a lot of work, but dreams do come true. And it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Once you're involved in it, I'd only done last year. I started. I was approached to commentate the women's league here, and I was just a color commentator. And then this year they asked if I wanted to do play-by-play, and I wasn't sure about play-by-play. But I think it's one of those things. Once you get into that environment of doing that sort of stuff, you find a real love for it.
Yep, you really do, and you kind of, I always tell people when, if you're looking at when people go and they're looking to buy a house and they go from house to house to house to house to house, but then you walk in and this is the one, right? Or maybe you're going on so many dates and you're trying to figure stuff out, and then all of a sudden you're like, this is the one. That's how I felt with media. It was always like set from the age of 12, this is what I want to do. And I wasn't the greatest student. I was pretty average. When I went to college, suddenly I was on the Dean's Honor Roll, and I'm like, how did this happen? But it just came natural, and it was like, it was meant to be. And it's all I ever knew, and it's all I ever wanted to know. And I became so passionate about every facet of media. And while yes, my journey started in sports, then I eventually moved into news and then behind the scenes. And it was just when and it felt fantastic. And I'm so glad you took the chance to do play-by-play, Andrew, because so many people would let their insecurities or their fears stop them from taking that opportunity, taking that chance. So the fact that you did that, and look at you now, you're thriving. You're doing so well. So that's awesome.
I don't know about thriving. I'm not sure about that, but I'm getting by.
There you go. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's really cool to do play-by-play, and I think I didn't want to do it, and then I look back on it now, and I thought, I'll watch and listen to that much hockey. I think I can get through.
Absolutely.
Reverting back to your childhood, was it tough growing up as a first-generation Canadian?
I mean, I think what was tough was, growing up in any immigrant family. It's hard to get by, right? Like, so I would see some of my classmates, they would have, Nintendo, and the best I could do would be rent a Nintendo. But you quickly learn to adapt, right? So like when my friends all switched over to Super Nintendo or to Sega, that's when my parents ended up getting me a Nintendo for my birthday. And yes, it was no longer the in thing, but I didn't care. I finally had a Nintendo. And then guess what? I went to all my friends who were no longer playing it. I'd be like, give me all your games. So suddenly I was the one that was thriving, and because I didn't care. And, my parents did a really good job of really raising us to just be like, listen, as long as you have, you may not have all the latest and greatest things, but you will always have a roof over your head. You will always have clothes. You will always have food, and you always have love. And that's what's important. And of course, being a typical immigrant family, you'd always go and spend the summer in Portugal. So there was always money for that. So, priorities, I guess, right? So, but no, it was, Canada is such a wonderful country and it's so welcoming of so many different cultures. And that's what makes this country so beautiful. It's so awesome. And yeah, it's been wonderful. And, again, Andrew, if you haven't been here, you are more than welcome to come down. I'll be glad to play tour guide Barbie with you.
Well, I'm hoping to get across. Obviously, I'm a Flames fan. I want to get to the dome before they. Yes, I know. It feels like that. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get across before they bulldoze the dome into Alberta. So if I get across there, I'll 100% shoot you a message and let you know
Listen,
that I'm in the
I would gladly go back into enemy territory with you and enjoy watching a game at the dome, which is always an experience too. Like it is something, and you don't realize just that curve. You don't realize that saddle until you're actually really inside. And if you're sitting near the top, you don't actually see the scoreboard, right? They have like little screens up top so you can actually see what's on the scoreboard or whatever. But you do have an unimpeded view of the ice, and that's really what matters. But no, it's pretty cool, and I'm really happy for the city of Calgary to finally be getting a proper state of the art facility. I think that's going to be wonderful for them. It's just it's just too bad their team is terrible.
Yeah, I know. I just seen recently the Oilers have overtaken us now. We're starting to drop down, and the wins keep piling up.
I mean, they're playing right now. They were up, I think, 4-0. But by the time I came up here to do this podcast with you, so I mean, the Oilers, they're on fire. What can I say?
Your connection to this podcast was through the queer community. You are a gay person.
What? I'm shocked.
Was that a struggle growing up, or how early did you know about your sexuality and who you were growing up?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it took me a long time. I was a kind of a late bloomer in terms of figuring out what was going on. In high school, I had one girlfriend. We really did nothing more than just a kiss, and you just knew this really wasn't for me, but whatever. I mean, didn't really put much thought into it. But then you kind of start to notice that, like, I'd go swimming and I'd be like paying attention to all the guys, or I'd be paying attention to the lifeguards. I'd be like, hey, that's interesting, but didn't really quite know like what was going on, what was figuring it all out. And it wasn't until I kind of got to college that I started to really realize, hey, I think I'm gay, and kind of started, and then that became a process, because not only was I trying to figure out myself, but then it was, how can I be gay and be a sports reporter? That just, my mind was blowing. And, there really wasn't a lot of like role models out there. Like, there really was, back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, like, really, like, what are you getting? I mean, Queer as Folk would air at 11:30 at night. Again, much like hockey, I would sneak down into the basement to try and like watch it with no volume, and then if I even heard a footstep, boom, changing that channel, and away we go. But yeah, it was a struggle to try and figure that out, and I do credit the website outsports.com, because that's the first time that I realized, hey, there are gay people who like sports, and that's when I kind of start to feel that, hey, this is pretty cool. But it did take several years before I was truly comfortable in being out and being in media. And which, I mean, funny story, and I'll just say it now just because we're kind of talking about it, but the one time when it really hit home was, I was a sports reporter in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, for those of you who don't know. They call it the Paris on the Prairies. I don't know why. It is a beautiful city, but the Paris of the Prairies, okay. And a buddy of mine finally convinced me. He's like, "Hey, we got to go to the gay bar for New Year's," and I was like, "Yeah, okay, like let's do this. Like, I'm ready to kind of live my truth here a little bit." But I was still a little bit hesitant that like I might get recognized or whatever. And he's like, "Don't worry, the gays don't watch the news. It's not a big deal." Literally, as we're driving to the bar, there's a billboard right outside the bar, and you can't even make this up. And there's my face on the billboard, and it's like, "Tune in, Global News, 6 p.m." And I was just like, "Are you kidding me?" And I walk in, not even 5 minutes in. "Hey, aren't you the guy from the news?" And I'm like, ah. But you know what though? It was a good moment. It was a good teaching moment, and that's where the confidence started to grow, right? And now I am unapologetically me, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really cool. I can really relate to that in some of the media stuff that I do, because I thought the same thing about, can I be my true self as a bi person,
Mhm.
in sports, in hockey, etc., etc. The queer as folk thing too, that brings back that brings back memories too, because I did the same thing.
That's awesome. That's our generation, right? Like that's right.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so awesome.
Um, you've also, through your media career,
Mhm.
um, you've won a few awards as well, which is really, really cool. Can you just talk us through winning those awards, and what it means to you?
Yeah, I mean, some of them were as simple as like the Reader Choice Awards in Saskatoon for like best sports reporter, best sports department, and those were, you know, the public voting for that, and to get those really meant a lot because it showed that our mission, of really trying to connect with our local viewers, our local community, and going out to football games, going out to high school events, and so forth, was really working, and it was really leaving an impression. So that was really important to me. But the biggest award, and I would grab it right now, but it's out of arm reach, and I don't want to go out of frame for you right now. Is my
You can grab it. You can grab it if you want.
okay?
You
Give
can
me
grab
two
it. Yeah,
seconds.
yeah,
I'll
that's
grab
cool. That's cool. Kevin's just shooting off now to get this award.
it. All right. Sorry. Well, so this is a Canadian Screen Award, which is the Canadian version of an Emmy, and I won it. I don't know if you can see here. The Canadian Screen Award is a little bit of a, but anyways, it was for in 2017 for our best news special, which was the Fort McMurray wildfire evacuation. So I was a producer with Global Edmonton, and I had literally got back into the station from a lunch break, and my news director came in and said, "Hey, they're evacuating Fort McMurray. It's a town about, I think it's like 6 hours north of Edmonton. A lot of the oil companies are there, and they're evacuating the town. Big wildfire. We're going to do a quick break into regular coverage for about like 2 minutes. Can you do it from the control room?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." So I go into the control room, and just about we're about to start, the news director comes in again and goes, "Actually, change the plan. We're going to be live commercial free until 7 o'clock tonight." So that's like 4 or 5 hours straight. And it was like, okay, well, we have no preparation. We're just going to roll with it. Let's go. And we did. It was a total team effort, and we really told the story of the evacuation. We had great video, live video of the flames shooting through the forest, and seeing the panic as people try to escape those flames, knowing that they may not be returning home to their homes. And at one point, a friend of mine worked inside the government, and I managed to get him to get me in touch with one of the MLAs from the area, and Brian Jean. I believe he was the leader of the Wild Rose Party at the time. Anyways, he's from Fort McMurray, and he said live on the air with us, we did a phone interview with him, that he knew that his home had burnt down to the ground. So it was one of those oh my god moments. And yeah, so when we won that award, it was incredibly special. It was the highest honor that I've ever won, and very proud of it, both from an individual perspective and from a team perspective, because that's the point of local news, is being that source of information for people in a time of need, and that's what we did.
Yeah, it's amazing. An amazing story, and congratulations
Thank you.
on winning the award. And now it makes people tune into the YouTube as well, because if you want to see the award, you have to tune. You have
That's
to
right.
tune
That's
into
right.
the YouTube.
If you wanted to, I mean, look at this. It's so wonderful. Like it's heavy and anyways, it just collects dust
um,
now. It's fine.
uh, as a gay person, because we have obviously so many people on here who play hockey,
Hmm.
talking about their journey through sport, etc. As a gay person, what's the biggest challenge that you found in the media side of it to being your true self? And what could you suggest to people who are in media who are struggling to find that place?
I mean, I think things have changed so much over time. Like now, there's really no reason why you can't be yourself. I mean, I guess in certain countries, obviously, there's some countries where you can't. But speaking specifically in Canada, um, yeah, I mean, you can absolutely be yourself. However, you do have to have a bit of a thick skin, especially, you know, online. There are awful trolls, and there are people that will just cut you down, and they will say some pretty terrible things and whatever. But you need to remind yourself that if you allow them to get under your skin, you're giving them all that power. So don't. What does it matter what they're saying about you? Like, you know your truth. Your loved ones know who you are and what you're all about. So be confident in yourself, do the best job that you can, and who cares about the rest? And, you know, that's just from a viewer perspective. Obviously, inside the workplace, okay, if you're dealing with any kind of homophobic coworkers or whatever, there's processes there. Like, stand up for yourself and just, like, you know, end that right away. And that's why there are laws and there are human rights codes and so forth. But we're lucky in that it is 2024, almost 2025, and people can be their true authentic selves, and they should be proud of who they are, because at the end of the day, I really think most people in this world, they don't care who you're sleeping with, who you are, what you're doing. What they really care is, are you a good person? Are you someone that I want to sit down with and have a coffee or have a drink with? Like, that's all that matters. Andrew, I can sit down and have a coffee with you anytime, man. Like, we can go whatever. It's all good. Like, that's what matters, right? Like, can you sit down and enjoy yourself with that person? And other than that, it's like, who cares? Just be you. Like, life's short. We only have one life. And don't worry about what other people think. Worry about what you think and the kind of life you're living, because that's what matters.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you become your true self in your job, in whatever you do, you become the best version of yourself, and you do your job to the best of your ability as well. When you find that sweet spot, um, you obviously got the Oilers sweater on, and it's a big part of your journey, the Oilers. Do you
Yep.
remember the first time that you actually went to a hockey game and say held your partner's hand, etc.? And what was that like, and how daunting was that? I suppose.
Wow, that's a really good question. You know, for the first little while, when my now husband and I would go to Oilers games, I mean, we're not big PDA people in the first place, but so we really wouldn't, you know, show any affection or all that stuff. But the first Pride game that the Oilers did, we went to, and I remember just being like, okay, like, how is this going to go? Like, what's it going to be like? And, you know, we had, like, you know, the Pride Oilers hats on just to try and, like, subtly just be like, yeah, hey, we're part of the community. And yeah, there was no issues. Like, again, nobody cared. And, um, most recently, we were featured at a recent Pride game on the big screen, and when we knew we were going to be featured on there, and we had kind of discussed, like, hey, like, when they put us on the camera tonight, are we going to kiss? And we kind of were hemming and hawing about it, and then we're just like, hold on a second. If we were straight, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So what does it matter? So yeah, when that camera came on us, yeah, we kissed, we waved, we didn't hear any boos, we didn't hear any issues. In fact, we heard a lot of cheers. And you know, we had a few people come up to us in the concourse after and say, "Hey, we just saw it. That was really cool. You know, that's awesome. Congratulations." Blah blah blah. So yeah, we don't give people enough credit, I don't think. And obviously, again, we're lucky in the sense that you know, uh, we haven't had a lot of negative experiences, whatever, and that's not the case for everyone. And I don't want to paint this picture that the world is just rainbows and glitter and everyone's happy. And no, it isn't. I mean, for some people it is difficult. For some people, they do have family that abandons them and their loved ones abandon them, and it becomes really problematic. And there is a lot of hate. There can be some hate in the world too, but for the most part, people are supportive, and that's why it is so important to have Pride nights. It is so important to have Pride tape. It is so important to have podcasts like this, because visibility matters and people need to know that there are other people out there like them. 12-year-old Kevin needs to know that there are gay people who love sports, who are into sports and so forth, that they're out there. Like little Aussie kids need to know that, hey, I could be bi and I could be into sports too. And that's so important. And this better than anyone. Like, being bi can be really difficult in our community, and that's a really difficult road to navigate. So, kudos to you for being so unapologetically you and being so authentic and living your truth, because that is so awesome. That is so inspiring. In fact, we should be interviewing you because you have such a great story to tell.
I really appreciate that for the kind words. It's beautiful. A little, I suppose we can do it now because this is the final episode for the season. But there is something in the works for an episode in season 3 where a friend of mine will flip the script and put me under the
Nice.
microscope. So yeah, I'll
Good.
get it. Yeah, you'll get a bit of a story from me in my journey.
What is your story? What makes Andrew tick? Tune in later in 2025.
Maybe we can get you to do a voiceover or something to announce the episode.
There we go.
The Oilers, I'd like to get the perspective from fans because I think the NHL, because they're the number 1 hockey league in the world, it's where everyone thrives to get to, win the Stanley Cup, etc. From your perspective, with Pride nights and things like that, how well are the Oilers doing things like that? And are they like heavily into the community as well with the LGBTI community?
So one of the things I hate about Pride nights is sometimes it's just so performative. You do the Pride night, you wear a little bit of Pride tape on your sticks for warm up, and then that's it. That's all, and you never hear about anything again. The Edmonton Oilers are completely different. In addition to their Pride night, in the summer they host a Pride Cup. And it's a road hockey tournament that they host in Ice District. And they raise money and support LGBTQ organizations, 2S LGBTQ organizations in Edmonton and area. They work with the Edmonton Rage, which is Edmonton's 2S LGBTQ plus hockey team. The Calgary Pioneers come up, same kind of thing. And they're super open and welcoming to it, which is pretty phenomenal, that in and of itself. They have great Pride merchandise as well. One of my favorite hoodies, which by the way in Saskatchewan they call hoodies bunny hugs, which is pretty cool, is an Oilers Pride jersey logo, so which is pretty awesome. And shamelessly, I will say, the Oilers were super welcoming when we approached them about getting married at Rogers Place. And they were so welcoming, in fact, and they were so excited that they actually surprised us in the middle of our ceremony, presenting us with 2 customized jerseys with our last names in the year that we got married. And fast forward to last year, they honored us during a Pride game in the big screen, and that's where they honored us by showing our wedding stuff, and which got a lot of applause and a lot of people saying. I had one guy sitting next to me saying, "How do I convince my wife to get married here at Rogers Place?" Or my girlfriend. So yeah, it was really special, and like I said, my chair is kind of falling apart here, and it was really cool that the Oilers were just so supportive, and they are just such champions for the community here in our city, and I can't speak highly enough of them. And I know that that's not the case for all organizations and stuff like that, but here in Edmonton, it's top notch. It's a top notch club.
I was going to get to that amazing moment.
Spoiler alert! I'm sorry.
No, that's all cool. I had one question.
Of course.
Before that, because I think you need to explain the story. Not too in depth, obviously, but the way that you and your husband met. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, we
Can you let the listeners know?
listen. We are a grinder success story, okay? Uh, it's we lived far enough away from each other that we never actually picked each other up on Grinder most of the time. But one night, at the time, I was doing color commentary for the university football team here in Edmonton. And so I was at the university, and like all gay guys do in their downtime, turn on Grinder. Let's see what's going on. Um, well, I must have turned it on, and my now husband was nearby studying at the university, and I obviously came up. And so he must have favorited me, starred me, whatever. And he thought about it apparently for like a week before he finally messaged. And the greatest message, like, what would it be? Like, you're just like, oh, it's gonna be something magical. It's gonna be something amazing. Hey, yo, what's up? And that was the message. Hook, line, and sinker. And I can remember when we started chatting that Saturday, um, I was just like, oh yeah, like what are you into, all that stuff? And he's like, yeah, I'm into sports too. And I'm like, yeah, all right. I'm like, sure you are. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'm watching like a baseball game right now. I'm watching the Red Sox play. And he's like, oh, I'm a Red Sox fan too. I was like, okay, sure you are. And then he started listing off players and stuff, and I'm like, okay, this guy likes sports. I'm like, okay, I'm down with this. And then that led to the first date. And then on date 3, he said, I love you, which scared me. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, you are out of this world. But it didn't scare me away. And lo and behold, we've been together for 11 years, married for 5. And yeah, it's been good.
That's crazy. It's a great story. It's really cool. I was thinking you didn't write back what took you so long when it was a week later.
You know what? I didn't, and I don't think I even found out that it was like a week that he had been in there for a little while. But yeah, he really like thought about how am I going to. So it took him all week to come up with "Hey yo, what's up?" But it worked. It worked. Shoot your shot, right? You never know what's going to happen.
Exactly, exactly. Talk us through the marriage and the wedding. How amazing was it? And can you describe your feeling actually getting to do it at the Oilers arena?
Yeah, when we approached the Oilers about it, they were just like, no one's ever asked us about this. Like, can we do it? Can we not do it? And they quickly realized that, yeah, we can. But there was a couple caveats. Number one, we wanted to look at what was available for us, and initially we wanted to do the Oilers Hall of Fame room, and I was like, that'd be great. There's so many like memorabilia there, like it's super cool, but the space wasn't large enough. Like we had about just under 200 people at our wedding, and I was like, if they all come to the actual ceremony, they're not going to be able to fit in here. So me being, of course, in media, I'm always looking at things through like a camera lens, and I'm like, I go, if we do it in Ford Hall, they have the rink boards there to enter you into the lounge area. So I was like, can you just imagine if like 2 people go and open those rink boards and out we come? We have bagpipers and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. So of course, my mind's going a mile a minute. This is what I want to do. But here's the biggest catch: is because it's Rogers Place and all that stuff. They were very upfront and said, you won't find out until a month before your wedding day if you get the space, because if
Oh
there's a
wow!
hockey game, if there's another event, if there's a concert, all of that would trump us, and that would boot us out. So we picked a venue for our reception that we were able to have for the entire day as a backup if we needed to have our ceremony there. And we just had to play the waiting game. And to be honest, I'm really glad it turned out, because our ring bearers had Oilers jerseys. We had orange pom poms. Like everything was Oilers themed and travel themed. And I was like, it'll look really silly if we have all of this and not at Rogers. So we told everyone that the wedding was happening at the Bison Lodge, which is a really cool old cabin overlooking the downtown in our river valley. And then a month before, we got the call that, yep, we're good to go. So we immediately contacted everyone and said, change the plan. We're getting married at Rogers. Hope you can join us. And it was fantastic. And the staff there even told us that they were so excited, and they were just all smiles seeing us that day getting married. So it was pretty special.
Everything that you knew about the Oilers, were you surprised that they said yes to one, a wedding, but two, a gay wedding?
I mean, I guess I was surprised in the sense of I just didn't really think it was really possible from a hockey perspective. But where I kind of had the idea from it is there used to be a website back in the day. It doesn't exist anymore. It used to be called Puck Buddies. And one of the guys that wrote for them, his name was Adam, and he wrote basically about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Him and his husband, they got their wedding pictures done at I don't want to say it's Mellon Arena. I can't remember what the name of the Pittsburgh Penguins arena is anymore.
PP&G Paints.
Yeah, there you go. And they were on the ice, had pictures taken, and all that, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. Imagine if you can get married at an arena or whatever. And then that always kind of stuck with me. And it was just even like the smallest little things, like when they were not tearing down, when they shut down Rexall Place, the old arena where the Oilers played, they started selling all the old seats. And one day we were having dinner at my mom's actually, and I made the joke. I was like, "Oh, can you imagine if we got like two seats from like the 300 levels, which is where we would typically sit during games? What if we got like two seats and that was our guest book for our wedding? You know, people just signed the seats. I go, wouldn't that be funny?" We just all kind of laughed, and then there was that silence, and we're just like, wait a second, actually, how cool would that be? And we actually ended up doing that. So we had two seats and people signed the seats, and we actually have it displayed in our bonus room right now. So which is also another pretty cool thing. So again, Oilers hockey, it's all pretty really important and plays a big part in my life and our life. And it's been really fantastic.
That's amazing. Is there a moment from the wedding? Obviously, getting married is the biggest thing to your husband. But was there a certain moment with the wedding that you remember back on the most?
I mean, I'm very much again, having been a news producer. Everything I was very scheduled and planned, and I knew everything that was going to happen. So when all of a sudden our wedding officiant says, "Oh, by the way, we have a surprise," I was like, what is going on? I was like, there's no surprise. Everything is scheduled here. I'm like, what is going on? And so when a member of the Oilers staff came out with the jerseys, that was super special. That was really, really important. And honestly, the moment where the staff opened those boards and I walked out and the bagpipers are there and all that stuff, I was like, wow, like this is actually happening, right? And it's pretty cool. And like, I mean, just so thankful and blessed to live in a country where, you know, same-sex marriage is legal, and it is accepted here, and you know, love is love, right? And you know, I remember a few years ago when Australia voted to legalize it. I remember cheering, being so happy, and messaging my friends there in Australia saying, "Yes, you know, this is awesome." So it's good to see.
Post a wedding, and being the only wedding at Rogers Place and being a same-sex marriage as well. Did you do any sort of media things for either the queer community around it, or any companies approach you to be involved with helping promote the community?
So again, because I worked at Global, no other media outlet was really going to touch that, right? Just simply because I was working for the competition. Um, my news director did ask, you know, hey, would you mind if we sent a camera down to get shots of this and do a little write up on our website and stuff like that? And initially, I was on board, but then I was like, this is a really special moment. And I really don't want this to go on Facebook or whatever social media, and then the trolls start putting in negative comments or all that. I wouldn't care, but I wouldn't want like my mom or my family to look at those comments and it just leave a stain on our special day. So I said no, I did not want any kind of media attention for it. But like I said, fast forward to last year, and the Oilers honored us at the game. So that was pretty special. And again, I don't think in life you don't need to have the media attention, all that stuff. I think it's just living your true life on a day-to-day basis. That's all that really matters, because that's where you leave an impression for people. That's where, you either inspire people who are struggling to find themselves, or you help people who maybe their kid just came out and they don't really know how to do it. They haven't been around an openly gay person or whatever. And then they realize, oh, hey, I work with so and so, and yeah, they're gay. And wow, okay, yeah, how does this work? Whatever, right? So it's just being, visibility matters. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be on a national stage, international stage, local stage. Just being you is what matters. And like I said, and I said it before, that's why I think it's so awesome how you are just constantly flying that bi flag and talking about that is so cool, because you don't see that so often. So I think that is so fantastic.
Yeah, it was one of the things when I started this podcast as well. It was something that I hummed and hard about with this podcast, actually launching it too. Was if I thought to myself, if I can help just one person, then I feel like that's a job well done. If I can help
Well,
multiple people, then even better.
yeah, and I think you absolutely will have. There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. It's starting to touch all different parts of the world. So
Yeah.
it's really cool, the different guests that I get to have on this podcast. Is there a certain? I always ask my guests this question before we finish up. What's your proudest moment that you've had within? How do I phrase this with you? Within queer hockey or queer media or anywhere along those lines? I usually ask people who I have on here who play hockey, what's their proudest moment they've had within queer hockey?
Wow, that is a great question. I think twofold. Number one was when You Can Play launched, and I got to know some of the people from the communication side of it. When they were about to launch, I worked with them to get some Canadian media attention as well, both from a local perspective, from global, and from nationally as well. So I felt really good about that, because it was really good pumping up the You Can Play organization. And then Pride Tape. I was working with global. We were such an integral part of getting Pride Tape off the ground and really promoting that. And I had I was fortunate to interview Andrew Ference on a number of occasions, who was part of the Oilers at the time. He was heavily involved with Pride Tape and really getting that message across. So being able to be that voice and to really help, even behind the scenes, to coordinate stuff, that would probably be one of the most proudest moments. And quite frankly, I think, again, just being visible and just being out there and just being proud and out and open, because it can inspire people. And maybe it doesn't, but I really think it does, because I think that people need to see that there's other people like them, that they aren't alone, and they can go ahead and be who they want to be, love who they want to love. And that's just what makes life so exciting.
How long did you spend at Global News?
So I was with Global for just over 19 years, and it was about 2 weeks ago that I made the difficult decision to leave. And that was a very difficult decision, but I decided to join the dark side and go into communications. But at the end of the day, I think it's at some point we all need to get out of our comfort zone a little bit and try something new. And I'm on the verge of turning 41 in a couple of next week, actually. So what better time to make the jump and to try something new and something different, and a different. I'm a storyteller. I love to tell stories. So what better way to try and try something different and flex my skills in a different way than this. And you know what? If it's a mistake, well, maybe I'll be joining you full time on the podcast, and we'll just go from there.
Well, you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the Global News career.
Oh, thank you.
19 years is outstanding, and all the best with what's to come in the new role as well.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, though,
you're going to invite me to come visit in Australia. Yes, it's on my bucket list. So let's go. Let's make it happen.
Anytime. I'll chaperone you around and show you the sights. Before I let you go, you've got the Oilers jersey on. Your favorite player is Leon Draisaitl, I think, these days.
I mean, he is gorgeous and he's really good.
Can Leon and the Oilers lift the cup this year?
Oh, that's the $1 million question.
And I'm laughing because obviously I've got my Flames cap on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing, Andrew. Do they have the talent? I mean, certainly. I have never been sold on our goaltending, and I mean, right now the Oilers are on a bit of a hot streak. They're looking incredible. They're looking like world beaters. I just don't think on a consistent basis to get to the Stanley Cup final again, to win the Stanley Cup, I just don't see it. But as we know, anything can happen. And if you have the right pieces, if you have the right situations where other teams are maybe just as inconsistent or struggling or whatever, I mean, I'll put Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman up against anyone. I mean, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins as well. I mean, that's a deadly four, and I'll put them up against anyone and we'll ace the league. But it's just goaltending. Like, you need to have confidence that you're going to have goaltenders that are not only going to win you a game, but they're going to steal you a game too. And I just don't see that in the long-term perspective. But I also didn't see the Oilers getting to within one win of a Stanley Cup last year. So, I mean, who am I to know? And I also have, anyone that follows me on social media and stuff knows I have the Jesus jinx, and it seems like every team I cheer for or whatever, the opposite happens. So, I mean, I'm notorious to just supporting losers. So we'll see what happens.
I do sit there and I think, I don't know how Florida keeps doing what they do, but I suppose it just gives everyone hope that you can get back to back-to-back cup finals, etc., and possibly win them. So,
well, I mean,
there is the hope there.
Look at Winnipeg. Yeah. Winnipeg started the year, and I was like, wow, finally, like, Winnipeg's going to go on a run here. And now I'm just like, yeah, we'll see. And then there's Calgary, and you're just like, what are you guys even doing? Let's go down to the AHL or something.
Yeah, well, the AHL team's doing better than the NHL team.
Yeah, well, there you
go. Is there anything you want to plug before I let you go, for our viewers, listeners?
Honestly, nothing to plug per se. Keep listening to this podcast, obviously. But no, the biggest thing on all of it is just be you, be proud of who you are. And I will say, anyone that is tuning in or whatever, if you do ever want to chat or you do have any questions or whatever, like, I'm easy to get a hold of. I'm still Global Jesus on a lot of my social media. That might change at some point, but I'm a global traveler, so I feel like that can kind of keep the name that way. But honestly, like, I'm super conversational, and I'll make time for anyone.
Well, Kevin, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you giving up your time. I tell the guests that come on that they don't have to give up their time to jump on and have a chat. But I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed the chat today, and I hope you have as well. A lot of laughs in there and some good.
Oh, it's been fantastic. It's been great. Anytime you want to come on, you want to talk any sport, whatever. I don't care. Well, let's do it. Let's have fun.
Yeah, we'll just have a weekly show, just talking whatever. Absolute nonsense.
I love it.
But thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. The final episode for season 2. I can't believe I've gone through 2 seasons of doing this monthly. Season 3's close to being full as well with guests, so that's really cool. But yeah, thank you for coming on, and enjoy the rest of your -6 weather that you got over there. And I'll try and put the air conditioner on to keep cool over here. But if we ever meet in the same spot, I'll 100% hit you up, and we'll catch up.
Oh, 100%.
Thank you so much for coming on.
You make your way to Alberta, and I will go out of my way to make sure that I show you an amazing time.
Awesome. Done deal. I am Andrew McDougall. That is Kevin Jesus. We are the Pride and Puck podcast. This is episode 22, the final episode for season 2. After this, we'll catch you in 2025. Ciao.
Cheers.